Welcome everyone to another episode of Cocktails with the Homies. My name is Daniel. Today I'm joined by a heavy hitter in this industry. He claims he can make a drink. We'll find that out today, obviously. Xander, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Tell the people where we are, what we're doing here, and what you do.
We're at my second home, Tell 2. It is my favorite dive bar in the city, bar none. It is a place that I come more often than I'd care to admit, but it is a great place for welcoming all. I think my favorite thing about it is that anytime I get out of work and meet up with my wife is that I never know what I'm walking into. That it could be anything from a vinyl record night, DJ night, karaoke, hardcore rock, metal, EDM, burlesque. It is the multi-tool of dive bars. Or it's just completely dead and I walk in on a sad Mike Delgado and have a drink with him.
I mean, you could tell just like off the bat, this place has history just ingrained into the very paint of this place. You could tell.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dottie. 1930s? It's been something? 1942. Since 1942, this has been something, different bars, different things along the world. So, original name Tell 2. Yeah, original name Tell 2. But so
beautiful. I mean, this place, like I said, you could tell it's got the wear of it all. You know. So you brought us here. Tell us, kind of where you started, and brought you to be such a thing in this bar, right?
So my journey is very unique. I wouldn't say very unique, but I never thought I was going to bartend. I never thought I was going to serve. I never thought I was going to be in the spirits world. From kindergarten until about 26, my entire life was solely dedicated on photography. I have a photo album from kindergarten, literally, that I curated and put down names, even though there's lots of spelling errors, to the point where I took every photography class available in middle school, high school. I joined the Air Force to pursue photography, got stuck into photojournalism, found out that I'm terrible at writing, had to take a remediary class to extend my education in what we call tech school for 2 weeks. And then I worked about 6 years as a photojournalist in the Air Force.
Wow.
Doing different articles, covering stories basically out of a base in Western Massachusetts. But during that time, I was a full-time student, had a part-time job, had many part-time jobs. I was a part-time nightlife club photographer, and then also was in the military and trying to balance all of that at the same time. And I got to a point where I needed a job, and I was a regular at a high-end cocktail bar in Boston called Drink. It was founded by John Gertzen and Barbara Lynch. And their idea, he always said to me, was he wants a bar with lots of corners, tiny water glasses, no menu, and no bottles visible. And why that seems ridiculous, the idea behind it was to have many corners where people would meet, have no bottles to distract from what you really wanted, have tiny glasses of water, because then you'd have to fill it up more often, so you'd have to have more interactions with the guests. And then every cocktail was a conversation. And so I came in for what at the time I thought was a stage. I later learned it was a stage on a Friday, and was hired by Monday. And then after about a year and a half of bi-weekly classes, written and practical exams to test up from bar back to apprentice, and apprentice to bartender, I became a bartender with over 300 cocktails memorized. I had to know all the spirits that we had in the house, and I had to work as a team, which kind of grew up doing, military was doing. And
sure,
no matter what position you are, you didn't lose the previous role, you added it to your repertoire.
Yeah.
So as an apprentice, you're still a bar back. As a bartender, you're both.
Yeah.
And so too often I see moments where bartenders sitting there, you need something, and you see the bar back's busy, and he sits there and waits. You got 2 feet, you got 2 hands, you can walk and go get it.
100%.
So after 3 years there, I had an opportunity to work for Pernod and jump ship to the brand side.
Yeah. So, well, that's kind of a big leap, right? So talk about that like learning curve going from bartender to brand. How did it like change your mentality on this industry and how you kind of like perceive it?
The funny thing is, my thought process was that it's the same thing I'm already doing, just at more bars. Because what I loved about drink specifically was that interaction, that experience, that adventure. The fact that you can sit there and talk to someone about, oh, I love this flavor, this mood, this emotion, and you could come up with a cocktail.
Yeah.
And then it'd set them down on the journey. And then ideally, you would then create 2 additional cocktails that would make sense off of that to kind of progress their journey in a certain direction, depending on whether they wanted more cocktails.
Yeah.
And so moving to the brand world, I'd already been doing studying. I'd already gotten to know a lot of like the industry people in Boston. And I figured I was like, now I can just sell them stuff. I don't have to be out as late. I get health benefits because I definitely struggled for many, many years in my 20s. And for all of those who see me now, who see I have my life together, I was a complete shithead through like from 18 to 25, and at a point where I couldn't afford to pay for my cell phone. I couldn't afford for public transportation, and I couldn't afford food. So I'd bike to work, use their Wi-Fi for my cell phone bill, and take home family meal. And I did that until I recovered and could pay my cell phone bills again and could get my life back together. And then within a few years after that, when I got my job with Pernod, I made another dumb decision, bought a brand new 2020 Civic SI with a 19% interest rate and had a $750 car payment a month.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Not the best decision. But going in the long form back to your answer, there was an adjustment of knowledge,
sure,
but not as big as you thought. However, that being said, I did not do well at Pernod Ricard. I will not be the first. I'll be the first one to tell you that I failed that job. I might want to point to other people sometimes, just because there is a chance that I could have been trained better. But I didn't realize all the nitty gritty that goes into it. Like, the hardest thing about this role is justification for your actions. Not as in philosophically, but as in you have a credit card that goes to a budget that is not your money. They expect goals from you, and then you have to kind of align that to make sure that your goals align with their goals, and then you can prove everything you've done helps them out. And I was not great at admin. I got backlogged. I would probably drink too much many days and then just get no motivation to go out the next day, and fucked up. And I was invited. They were restructuring the company I was in and had invited me to reapply to the job I already had, and then they did not accept my reapplication. So I worked for just over a year with Pernod, and then I was let go.
But then, pivoting and moving forward in this industry is vital, right? And from hearing what you're talking about, it really seems as though like it moves more towards more from rather guests, kind of like where you specialize on guests and their service and their experience, and you kind of pivot, and now you're talking to just bartenders, which sounds like a really cool kind of move, right? Like, instead of just nerding out with guests, now you're nerding out with people who seems like you can nerd out with, right? And they kind of like bite into that and really drink the juice with you, and you go through like this little fucking wave of teaching each other and getting to know each other. And I mean, talking to a lot of the people in this industry, like, you are loved, man. Like, to be honest with you, people love your events, and they come out and support, and you could tell. You could tell about that. So,
I mean, the long thing is, I think that's the best thing that ever happened to me. Is realizing that I can't not rest on my laurels, but not put in the constant daily effort. And there were a lot of things that came over from my time in the military, and attention to detail, staying on front of things, and learning how to do things as you go.
Sure. And this industry has for sure shown me that it's an industry of second chances. Because again, we've talked about it in different episodes of this podcast. We are, knitted together by a lot of different backgrounds, from the military to like people who were just, in their words, fuck ups, or whatever you want to describe it as. This catalyst here really does have a cool way of turning what could be nothing or looking like a dead end into super bountiful. And like, I think Dottie can attest to this. It's like you create relationships where people fucking love you through and through, no matter what, right? Like, it has a beautiful way of disarming people to be like their natural selves. Like it's quite a scene. And that's why we do it, I guess, at the end of the day, right?
That's why I feel like this city and i.e. this bar is a welcoming home. I mean, less so the city, honestly.
We're getting there.
Yeah,
we're getting
I
there.
think San Diego has its. I am the first person to say I love this city. I moved here for a reason, and after I lost my job with Pernod, my lease ended on the same day, so drove cross country, and that's where I experienced the lack of welcoming when I first moved out here. Besides my sister being out here, in my journey to get employment, I did, I think, over 120 applications.
Wow.
And you want to know how many responses I got?
1.
0. Never got a single response from any single of my applications. It wasn't until my sister, Ren Practice, shout out, yelled at Dan Sutherland to tell him to hire me that I got my job at Urban.
Huh. I mean,
I was months without anything. I just spent all my money on my the U-Haul to go cross country and my down payment on the apartment, and I got my job, and then immediately decided to blow my life up again. And then me and my ex broke up like 4 months after I moved out here.
and here this industry again, full circle to pick you up from your laurels, and
Yeah.
you know, it really is a gritty kind of industry to get through, to be honest with you. If you're in it more than 5 years, you fucking know, right?
Yeah,
You really.
And despite those like I have shared no animosity against the lack of responses. I was an unknown.
Yeah.
It's cross country. Drink didn't carry the same weight it did out on the East Coast. But then I proved myself. This was back when Urban North Park was a bit more popular. Mm-hmm. It was the hot spot for like the North Park industry crew, and we had guests, the staff come in from 7 Grand regularly. They'd get text messages from them to put in their wings so they could have them ready for their break.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of what got my foot in the door. I got to start meeting people, and while I loved that opportunity to meet and greet, Urban wasn't the bar for me. I was a guy that liked people that came to a bar to have an experience and to consume a story.
Sure.
Because I don't consider this just booze. Every cocktail is a story in a cup. I know it sounds fucking wild, but it is. That's the purpose, what I see behind it.
Absolutely.
And I realized that was not, people just went there to have food and drinks. And like, I got that, it was great. It put me on my feet. But then I realized that the brand world was calling back to me. So I pursued that.
Where did you go from Urban?
So I was very lucky to be the first ambassador in San Diego for Uncle Nearest Tennessee whiskey.
Oh, cool.
So for those of you who don't know, it's named after the first African-American master distiller on record, who's an enslaved man, and he worked with Jack Daniel and taught Jack Daniel how to make whiskey. And there's been a descendant of Nearest Green working for Jack Daniel for continuously since that day they met. And then the company's run by a female African-American and Nearest Green's great-great-granddaughter as the master blender.
Oh, that's super cool history.
Yeah. So it was, when I was working for them, it was the fastest growing American whiskey or bourbon for 3-4 years in a row.
Wow.
And they're also the most award-winning whiskey in the country for like 4 years in a row. And that job, I absolutely threw my entire personality into. It became who I was. I was no longer Xander Brown. I was Xander Brown with Uncle Nearest. And I got lucky because this happened right before COVID, and they kept me fully staffed, fully employed, and fully bonused.
Nice. That's awesome. That was a hard moment in the industry for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think I was hawking to-go cocktails at a tribute pizza during that. It was an interesting time.
Yeah, it was definitely crazy.
You know, and you obviously went through that company and you landed here in Bushmill, repping a lot of different brands like Stranahan, for instance. You kind of do whiskey educating, right? You kind of moved into education from what I've gathered. How does that kind of go about? Like, how do you...
It was a natural progression.
Okay.
From my time with even at Drink and military, I got into points where, as a bartender, you were training your apprentices and the barbacks. In the military, you trained anyone that was new into your position. Mm-hmm. And so, through my multiple jobs with Uncle Nearest, Pernod, and Disaronno, I was lucky enough to see this position, and that was kind of the progression that I saw my life going. There'd been whiskey in each one of my portfolios, And having the opportunity for the educator position at Proximo just made sense to me.
Yeah.
I like talking to people. I like sharing my knowledge. And what I like to do is teach teachers and teach students how to properly train and be trained. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like too often people in power positions of power or positions of, I don't know, pompous, whatever, like, I feel like people are sometimes get too full of themselves and feel like that because of what they know makes them more important.
Yeah.
And it makes no one more important for what they do. It's that my belief is that your knowledge should be a welcoming offer. Like,
Sure.
I have a goal to be able to share things with you that I have taken years to study, and I want to be able to share that with you. And so getting into this role with Proximo, so I do Bushmill, Stranahan, Pendleton, Tin Cup, and Proper 12. And I study beyond belief everything I can. We have an internal website for us. So I took every single class. I then searched out articles for additional information outside of what is offered to me. And even before day one, I was able to buy a book from Amazon off the history of Bushmills, because it's the oldest licensed distillery in the world. It's 416 years of history.
Jesus.
So it takes a lot of studying, a lot of knowledge. And my goal is just to share that because it's interesting and it's entertaining. And I want to make whiskey as a category more welcoming and not have just old men ruin it for everyone.
I mean, I think it's a valuable kind of thought process to have. You know, like the day you think you're the smartest is the day you're really the dumbest. Really, like learning is a lifetime thing.
The day I stop learning is the day I die.
100%. I mean, it's definitely an ego thing. I think that kind of like influences that, but
that's what, you have to be confident in your own self. I often joke that I'm the most humble, which for me is the greatest sentence that I ever said. And it's like, I know what I know, and I have to exude a level of confidence that exists to make people trust me.
Yeah.
The interactions I have with people can range from like Seth MacFarlane, 50 Cent, famous NFL players. I'm meeting a billionaire on Monday.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
like the third richest man in the world.
Yeah.
And I have no nerves about it at all, just because they're just humans. And you have to be confident in yourself to be able to just go up there and talk to them if they're allowed to, and sell what you're supposed to sell and talk about what you're supposed to talk to. And my goal is to pour them some Bushmills, show them about the history. And if I can do that, great. If not,
you know, touching on this whole, you know, kind of theme of like you having this presence and you have to go about yourself some type of way. You know, a lot of people in this industry regard you as a mentor, and you know, like as you move on and the years progress, like kind of a lot of people want to learn from you. How does that kind of influence how you go about, you know, things? And
I love the opportunity to do that. I think I don't get it often as much as I would like to, kind of like one-on-one. And so often what I do is brand trainings.
Sure.
It's part of one of my goals at work. And my best thing I like to do is sit down trainings with as many bartenders as possible and adapting to those bartenders, because we all come from different walks of life. There's very green bartenders that I ask them about the basics of distillation and knowing what the difference of a calm still, a pot still is, and they have never heard about that. Or then people that know about the distillation. It's just my ability to adjust to help who I need to help is great. And I think once I might get my life a little bit more organized and like thought about doing USBG again, trying to reviving that again, if that's a possibility in my life. I've also wanted to get back into volunteering and doing like, what is it? Big Brother.
oh, that's cool.
Something like that. But often like I do try to help out my friends and bartenders when they're possible. When they have questions, I reach out to them.
I mean, we're a result of that, right?
Yeah.
You sold us our first mics. You know, we're out here trying to interview people. So.
Yeah, and there's a great opportunity there, and I think it's not as easy as it sounds to you. It's just because there's still the point of where I am working for a company, trying to get a product in there.
Absolutely.
And I like to do education as I can, and when people do have questions, I answer them. But there's still a disconnect within my position to that ability.
Yeah.
And I think people do respect me as a mentor to a certain extent, but I wouldn't be confident saying that many people would call me mentor. If that makes sense. And it might just be my own self.
I think it is. I think that's a little bit of ego on you. I think some people do regard you in some sort of way like that. Absolutely. Even if they don't tell you to their face.
Yeah.
You know, that's on them, right? That's their ego. Like, oh, I'm not going to give the guy his.
I don't think it's a lack of credit. I think it's just a lack of my ability to do like true training.
Yeah.
Like, if there is an opportunity to run like a multi-week class that people could sign up for, that'd be something rad, and I'd feel more of like validated in that title.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a certain level of I am doing this for a job, and so there is an ulterior motive behind my education at all times, to a certain extent.
But I don't even think it's you also directly kind of involved in someone's trajectory. I think it could even just be you doing the hustle, making things happen, and people seeing that, right? And like, I feel like in bartending, people hit a lot of walls or they hit a lot of like obstacles, and they need to see people kind of overcome that.
Yeah.
And people get through things and live the life that they, can go, hey, that seems pretty fucking cool. Like, I want to do that shit. How do I do that? And I feel that in and of itself pushes people to do cooler things.
Yeah.
As well.
And then part of it is just as part of who I am as a friend.
Yeah.
Where I don't necessarily give myself that credit. Because like thinking about that, as you say, I was talking to a bartender last night and him wanting to go into the brand world. And I gave him a website that is specifically dedicated to brand jobs.
Sure.
Or even when we get new reps within my company, setting them aside times to train it. And it's like, I think there are times more so I do it more officially than I think about it because my brain was stuck on just trainings, staff trainings. And I guess you are more right.
Yeah, it's a lot of offshoots. Again, it's just like this industry really does flourish in the off hours, right? We're out here at night, in the middle of the night, making deals or learning and pushing ourselves forward. And it's like, again, really gritty at times environment.
Yeah.
But, we make it happen.
Pardon me, my wife's calling. I need to make sure, because she might be joining. I love you, Lauren Robinson.
Hey, I love my wife too.
I love Lamp.
Love you. Yeah, work.
You call? Or am I crazy? Oh, never mind. I'm crazy.
Well, I think right now is a good time. You've made one cocktail. Do you want to talk about it? Or do you want to just make a second cocktail while you're at it?
Both.
Because I think this is Cocktails with the Homies.
It is Cocktails with the Homies, and I am a homie.
I'd love to prove on camera that Xander can make a drink.
So I talked a little bit about that. That is a Diamondback. Well, it's a bastardized Diamondback. But it's reminiscent of just me being obsessed with green chartreuse. For any of those.
Amen.
Green chartreuse tattoo. But there's also other classics that kind of stick around still for my brain that I always love to fuck around with because sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing of the bar that I did work at is we didn't rely on like complicated techniques or complicated garnishes. It was about high quality ingredients presented simply. That's why I'm like pretty... not like anti-garnish. I just don't use a lot of garnishes.
I really like that philosophy from that place.
Yeah.
That, you're talking about little water glasses just so you can kind of provoke interactions and like, add to the experience like you're talking about. That's a pretty unique kind of thought on like service and like you being able to push the needle in their experience.
It's just more time with the guest. And even to that point is that you don't call them customers, they're guests. You're inviting them into this your space and you're wanting to give them a great experience. So what I'm making here is a fancy free. It is a great, just basic riff on an old fashioned. It's half an ounce maraschino. I would have done 2.5 ounces of booze, but I didn't bring enough booze. And then, Angostura. And then Angostura bitters. And then traditionally garnished with a fresh orange, but I don't feel like doing that because we're in a dive bar, and I think it's just as good without.
I'll take it. I'll take it nonetheless. You could put that used orange in there.
You want my used orange?
Filthy.
Sanitary. Don't worry, this is before opening hours. Nothing we're doing is illegal.
And I did ask for it.
Yes, you did. So it's simple, it's easy, and it's just 3 ingredients on ice.
Yeah. So you talked about kind of your hopes for the future, right? Touch a little on that. Is there like kind of a bigger scheme to what you want to do? Is there like maybe Xander takes on different countries, or are you kind of trying to stay in San Diego?
I mean, I think one of the best things that happened to me recently is my wife, and having someone that is the foundation to the helium-filled balloon that I am, that would float away into abyss and fly too close to the sun and pop, and then try to put the pieces back together. She kind of has taught me a lot of stability and no need for FOMO and no need for chasing every fun party aspect thing.
Sure.
And so there is a level of where like I could see myself being a global ambassador for a brand. I feel like I could survive that. But what you hear is survive. And I think there's a difference between teaching myself, there's a difference between surviving and thriving. And I have created such a fun base for myself here. And I think the next progression for me is a point of management within this kind of realm. Not management, but like trainer, head of advocacy, so to speak.
Yeah.
I don't mind traveling a bit more than I am. And the more money I make, the more my wife can travel with me. So that appeases her. And I think what I would like to do is be a head of a team in my next role. But what I never want to lose is this. Just this ability to sit here and put my hand on a bar, talk to some random bartender, like build that. Like my favorite thing that ever happens is going to a new bar, getting a camaraderie off with the bartender, and then just becoming kind of like homies and just shooting the shit with each other and like ribbing on each other and like asking questions.
Yeah, man.
And so it's like I can't ever go back to what I did with the military with desk work. I'm not built for desk work. I'm not a sit down, relax, and putz away. It's like I've learned to do it to be able to do what I'm doing now. I've learned how the best ability to do it for me, like waking up this morning, getting my coffee, and just before I have time to think, I literally hop on my computer and start doing my expenses this morning. Before I even have a chance to be distracted by anything, I immediately open the start coffee and go. Or often doing it as I go in between bars I go to. But I think my goal right now is keep pursuing this job. I love this role.
Yeah.
I love this company. I love this brands. I have a great level of autonomy. Yeah. Where I kind of exist on my own space.
Sure.
People respect what I do in my role. And I don't get many corrections. I was told recently by my boss and my boss's boss or their coworker that I was the king of admin, which is so funny to me. It become a very quick full circle for losing a position because of that, to being apparently one of the best people in admin and within his role. But it just makes it so I cannot stress about doing all the other things I like to do.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm gonna try this.
Yeah, please.
I'll turn out.
You talk about this kind of attitude of always being on, and it is fucking good. I'm a fucking victim of this as well, getting lost in the work.
Lost in the sauce.
Yeah. And the sauce tastes so good sometimes. But, pushing forward, you really got to take a step back. You got to look at your life and yourself. What do you find really kind of gets you to slow down, or gets you to kind of just like, you got this world, and, the more I feel like you're in a brand and you have a team, like it's a world around you. How do you set it aside and kind of find a stillness in all this?
For me, it ebbs and flows.
Sure.
For any of you who have not noticed or self-diagnosed me yet, I have severe ADHD. And it is a thing where I hyperfixate from things to another. During COVID, I started a 3D printed earring jewelry company. For why? Because I got obsessed with 3D printers and I bought one and learned how to use it.
They're so cool.
Then my next thing is when we were lucky enough to buy a home a couple years ago, I bought a table saw And then I went through recycled wood art for a little bit. I used to be into gaming. I was doing League of Legends, and I go through that. Then also during COVID, I went all in on disc golf, and that has been my obsession. I have close to 100 discs in my house. A rolling cart that holds my discs that I can sit on during tournaments. And it kind of just goes through these cycles, or then I get too obsessed with work and don't get to go do what I need to do for myself.
Sure.
And it's a balance, and I wish it was just easy enough to be like, tell myself to go relax.
Yeah.
And turn off. And sometimes it's too dramatic. Like, instead of just dimming the light switch, sometimes I hit the breaker. And I'll catch myself
For sure.
a day at a time, not getting off the couch. But I have a level of having to give myself the space where I work well over 40 hours a week, most weeks. And not punishing myself for those times where I quote unquote hit the breaker and turn off entirely. I'm not missing out on opportunities or work. I'm not lacking my job. I'm doing what I need to be doing. But then I have to remind myself that I also have my own personality and hobbies that you need to focus. And so it's a wild world, and it's such a weird balance. And that's like goes back to being a trainer, is that teaching people that. And also, I'm very good at teaching it, but I don't necessarily always listen to it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, long story short of that question is that I just push for it and drive for it. And my goal as of late is just to get back going, throwing discs again, because it is kind of a moment of just focusing entirely something else. Like, I call it hiking with activities, but then you're thinking about the shot shape you have, you're thinking about the disc you're supposed to throw, you're thinking about how to lay up. And then when it's friends, it's just a great time to I don't often think about my job when I'm out there. And I think that's the best thing for me. Sometimes.
I love it. You know, I personally really resonate with that answer because I am also very ADHD, and we have this habit of like going all in on things, right?
Yeah.
Steps at a time. But yeah, I think it really does resonate, and kind of like you got to just go back to your training, right? I think that's what you have to tell yourself. Go back to the training. Go back to like knowing how to do these things. Go back to the proper steps. But, you know, this is a 0 to 100% industry. So I see why it's 0 to 100% relaxation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. It's hard. But again, like, I've been taught to be able to allow to turn my brain off. And
I love it. Whatever we can do to find that kind of zero and come build back from, and, you know, be able to give 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta keep a little bit in your cup before you run out of it.
Yeah, luckily my cup usually is under a waterfall, so.
Cheers. Cheers to your waterfalls, baby.
Cheers, man.
Well, yeah, thank you again for... Oh, actually, real quick, to touch on a subject that you brought up earlier, branching out and how you kind of found that as an outlet in terms of like doing those nonprofits like the Big Brother and things like that. How do you kind of see how you fit that into all of this? Because I know a lot of people who like really want to have a break away from all of this, but you know, you work 5 days a week, you get called in on your 6th for admin, things like that happen. How do you kind of like delineate that within yourself to be like, you know what?
That's a great question. And once I figure that out, I'll let you know. But I mean, I think it's little acts. And I find that I have a position that lets me to do things that help benefit others.
Yeah.
And so while I might not be able to do that to the extent that I want to right now, I often find, as I said, ways to get away with it in my current role. Not get away with it. It fits into my MO, but one good example is coming up December 8th at Park and Rec. I'm doing a industry crafts fair. I've reached out to about 12 different industry makers, from painting to taxidermy to sculpture, and I'm giving them a space to all set up tables to be able to sell their wares.
That's super cool.
And so it's like, it's not necessarily like me volunteering my time, but it is a way that I can give something back to the people that need it.
Yeah.
Even here, I love the bar so much that they went through a break. They were broken into, I a year or two ago. And what I knew is I could volunteer things for work in my time that way. And so I was able to start reaching out to other brands and get them all to donate product or prizes to go through like a silent raffle.
Sure.
And I think by the end of it, was it 20 plus brands and like 10 plus businesses, if not more. And I was able to raise a couple $1,000s.
That's beautiful.
And it's like,
We were able to replace our sound equipment that was stolen. We were able to like keep our shows going. That generates money for suppliers.
For sure.
Without Xander's help on that, it would have been totally lost. Because
and she never asked for help, and then she never would have either. And I love Dottie for that, but it's like, I have, when I yell at her about shit like that, I have to remind myself there should also be a mirror in front of me while I do that. Because it's a moment of pride. It's a moment of like, this is my job, this is my establishment. Like for her and for me, it's that you need to learn that when you're in trouble, you are valuable to the people that care about you.
100%.
And I think asking for it isn't selfish. It's trusting that they appreciate you as much as they do. Like,
Yeah.
and so I knew, I don't think I even really asked for her whether she wanted this. I said, I want to do this. I think I kind of didn't give her an option. And so, and the great thing about it is literally, it's like the first couple times I posted it, I got more and more and more volunteers. I think I remade that flyer like a dozen times because I had to keep on adding brands to it.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And it was like moments like that that make me so proud to be in this role, in this job. Because why I might not be able to get to do and sit down and be the big brother for a kid in need, I can help out other people in different ways. And it completely fell underneath my requirements for work to throw events. It put me in a good limelight for my job, for my company.
Yeah.
And be able to throw that and see that and get the countless social media hits from that and the flyers. But then it directly helped someone that I care about.
Yeah.
And to a place that I care about. Because, as we said, home away from home.
Yeah, man. And what wouldn't you do for your home, right?
Exactly.
What a beautiful full circle, right? And, that's why I love doing this thing, right? We hear awesome stories and how bars survive and how bartenders make it and how, lives are changed. And it all happens with this little substance right here.
Damn straight.
Yes, sir. But, I want to thank you. I'd love to thank Dottie while she's here. Thank you so much.
Dottie, you want to come in here for a quick shot?
Yeah, please come take a little shot with us. You guys run a beautiful home, and I felt it the second. This is Dottie, by the way, everyone. Hi. And I felt it the second I walked in here, and the second I saw people I love on this shelf.
I forgot you know whiskey. You're a tequila girl, aren't you?
I'll drink your
Despite as much she loves me, she doesn't drink whiskey.
But again, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Right.
Appreciate all of you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you. This is another episode of Cocktails with the Homies, everybody.